Press release for immediate release. Date: November 5, 2025. Location: Juba, South Sudan. Special court orders improved detention conditions for Dr. Riek Machar and co-accused. The special court trying South Sudan's suspended first vice president, Dr. Riek Machar Teni, and 7 co-accused has issued new directives aimed at improving the detainees' welfare while in custody. During its 18th session held on Wednesday, the court ordered that the accused persons be permitted to receive additional food from their families and to spend 1 hour outdoors daily under the close supervision of the National Security Service, NSS. In addition, the court directed that each accused be granted individual access to medical doctors, following a motion filed by the defense team on October 22, 2025, which raised serious concerns about the detainees' health and treatment conditions. The prosecution team had opposed the motion, arguing that the defense failed to specify which of the accused required medical attention or supplementary food support. However, the court ruled in favor of limited relief measures to safeguard the basic rights and well-being of the defendants pending the continuation of the trial. The case, which centers on the alleged Nasir incident of March 2025, remains one of the most closely followed proceedings in South Sudan's recent history, drawing both domestic and international attention to issues of justice, political accountability, and human rights. November 4, 2025. Addis Ababa/Juba. The African Union's Peace and Security Council, PSC, has raised alarm over the slow pace of South Sudan's peace implementation and warned of renewed violence risks, while urging the country's leaders to meet the February 2027 deadline set under the 24-month extension of the transitional period agreed in February 2025. In a communiqué adopted at its 1308th meeting on October 28, the 15-member council expressed grave concern over delays in carrying out the 2018 revitalized Agreement on the Resolution of the Conflict in South Sudan, RARCSS, which ended a brutal civil war that killed hundreds of thousands and displaced millions. The AU body said the peace deal remained the only viable path toward a durable political settlement in the world's youngest nation, which has faced instability and sporadic fighting since independence in 2011. The call comes amid political and security tensions in South Sudan that have delayed the implementation of key provisions of the 2018 peace agreement. First Vice President Riek Machar, a principal signatory to the deal, has been suspended and is facing treason charges in a special court in Juba. Extended transition. The council called on South Sudan's leaders to honor the extended transition period, which runs until February 2027, and to ensure credible elections are held by December 2026, a key milestone of the peace process. The current political and security situation demonstrates a tendency to relapse into violence, the communiqué said, calling for an immediate and unconditional cessation of hostilities among the South Sudan People's Defense Forces, SSPDF, the Sudan People's Liberation Movement/Army in Opposition, SPLM/AIO, and allied militias. Security reforms. The council urged the transitional government to expedite the graduation and deployment of the necessary unified forces, a key provision meant to merge rival troops into a national army, and to accelerate disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration, DDR, and broader security sector reforms. It also encouraged the government, with support from the AU, United Nations, and regional bloc IGAD, to strengthen key institutions such as the National Elections Commission, the National Constitutional Review Commission, and the Political Parties Council to pave the way for polls. Transitional justice. On transitional justice, the PSC welcomed recent progress but pressed for the operationalization of the Commission for Truth, Reconciliation, and Healing, CTRH, the Compensation and Reparation Authority, CRA, and the long-delayed hybrid court for South Sudan to ensure accountability. The AU Commission was asked to provide technical support for the establishment of the court to fight impunity and consolidate reconciliation efforts. Acknowledging a dire humanitarian situation, the Council appealed for increased aid and called for the swift creation of a special reconstruction fund to rebuild war-torn areas. It also urged the government to adopt fiscal policies to stabilize the economy and address the depreciation of the South Sudanese pound. Civil society welcomes AU stance. South Sudanese civil society leader Edmund Yakani welcomed the communique, describing it as a reflection of the people's expectations. "I appreciate and welcome the outcome of the AU Peace and Security Council meeting," said Yakani, executive director of the Community Empowerment for Progress organization, CEPO. "The communique speaks to our wishes and expectations, and we thank the AU for its continued solidarity with the people of South Sudan." Yakani urged President Salva Kiir and other political leaders to act on the AU's decisions and accelerate the implementation of the 2018 peace accord. "The AU has spoken and stood with the people of South Sudan," he said. "Now it is the responsibility of our leaders to translate these calls into reality." He also appealed to the AU Commission to expedite the long-delayed appointment of a High Representative for South Sudan, a position meant to be filled by a former African head of state. "The appointment is urgent to help rebuild political trust and renew commitment toward peace," Yakani added. "We need genuine and inclusive dialogue to transition our country from violence to stability." Government officials in Juba could not immediately be reached to comment on the communique. Peace partners urge President Kiir to act before 2026 elections. Juba, South Sudan. The European Union, EU, African Union, AU, IGAD, and other international peace partners have called on President Salva Kiir Mayardit to take urgent steps to preserve peace and stability ahead of the 2026 general elections. The appeal comes amid growing concerns over the ongoing court case involving suspended First Vice President Dr. Riek Machar and several senior opposition members. Observers warn that the proceedings, if mishandled, could heighten political tensions and risk plunging South Sudan back into conflict. Regional and international actors are urging President Kiir to demonstrate statesmanship by fostering genuine dialogue, ensuring justice and fairness, and prioritizing national unity over political rivalry. Analysts say the coming months will be critical in determining whether South Sudan remains on the path of peace or slides once again into turmoil. President Kiir must think wisely this time around to prevent another civil war, one diplomat said. The European Union, EU, African Union, AU, IGAD, and other international peace partners have appealed to President Salva Kiir Mayardit to take immediate and concrete measures to safeguard peace and national stability ahead of the 2026 elections. The call comes at a time when opposition leader and suspended First Vice President, Dr. Riek Machar and several of his allies remain before a special court, a move many observers view as politically motivated and detrimental to the fragile peace process. Peace advocates warn that the continued detention and trial of key opposition figures risk deepening mistrust and undoing years of hard-won progress under the 2018 revitalized peace agreement. They urge the government to demonstrate leadership and foresight by promoting reconciliation, ensuring judicial independence, and fostering inclusive political dialogue. President Kiir must think wisely and place the nation above politics. South Sudan cannot afford another cycle of violence, a joint statement from advocacy groups read. Civil society organizations are now calling on the region and the broader international community to maintain pressure on all parties to uphold peace commitments and to prevent the country from sliding back into another devastating conflict. During today's session, the defense concluded its cross-examination of the lead investigator in the case, Major General Basilio Thomaswani, who disclosed a pivotal development to the court regarding the background of the incident. On the third accused, Honorable Gatwech Lampuch, member of the Transitional National Assembly, General Basilio stated that Honorable Gatwech held a press conference in Juba discussing the movements of forces heading to Nasir County, indicating that these forces belong to a single entity, SPLMIG, and are not unified forces. Based on this incident, the investigator formulated a charge alleging that the press conference carried political or inflammatory implications, despite the fact that the investigator had not personally reviewed the content of the statement. This renders his testimony devoid of legal value according to the rules of evidence, which stipulate that testimony must be based on a fact the witness personally saw or heard. Consequently, the defense argued that the accusation lacks the material element, actus reus, of the crime and is not based on direct evidence. Furthermore, they added that what was attributed to the third accused false within the scope of freedom of expression and the oversight duties of a member of parliament, and does not constitute a crime in the absence of proven criminal intent. The defense team further reserved its position before the court regarding further questioning, asserting that it awaits the appearance of the direct witness, or the person who actually heard the statement, for cross-examination and the refutation of his claims with evidence and facts. Consequently, the defense argued that the accusation lacks the material element, actus reus, of the crime and is not based on direct evidence. Furthermore, they added that what was attributed to the third accused falls within the scope of freedom of expression and the oversight duties of a member of parliament, and does not constitute a crime in the absence of proven criminal intent. The defense team further reserved its position before the court regarding further questioning, asserting that it awaits the appearance of the direct witness, or the person who actually heard the statement, for cross-examination and the refutation of his claims with evidence and facts. Major General Basilio Wani acknowledged a set of facts before the court today, effectively dismantling the legal basis of the alleged charge against the fifth accused, the first vice president, He Dr. Riek Machar Teni Durgan. These facts reveal the accusation's vexatious nature and its contradiction of established events. The lead investigator testified that He Dr. Riek Machar had sent an official letter to He President Salva Kiir Mayardit on February 27, 2025, prior to the Nasir incident, urging him to convene an urgent meeting to discuss the country's security situation, including that in Nasir. However, the lead investigator himself admitted that he did not investigate whether President Salva Kiir had responded to that letter. The absence of a response represents a clear deficiency in the investigation. This information demonstrates that the first vice president was seeking an audience with the president to address the situation through institutional and peaceful channels, and that the president's disregard of the letter may have contributed to the subsequent escalation of the crisis.